The Phantom is dead. Controversial? Let's discuss. Hi, I'm Ash from DroningON, and yes, there have been a lot of videos recently about the Phantom 5. There's been fake news, speculation, rumours, fake videos, fake photos, and more. Well, let's try and get to the bottom of some of this and talk about whether the Phantom still has a place in terms of the drone industry. So my first drone actually was a Phantom 3 Professional, and a brilliant drone it was, but at the time buying my first DJI product, if the Mavic was there, would I have bought the Mavic instead? Well, the answer for me is yes. Why would I want to buy a big, static-shaped drone that's not at all really portable? It doesn't fold up, it's heavy, it's not compact. I can't really take a Phantom on a plane easily without it being very obvious that it's a drone. Now just consider that point for a second as well. Put yourself in that situation. If the two were out when you were buying your first drone, maybe you were in that situation, which did you buy or which would you buy first? Comment below now with your thoughts. But for me, the Mavic has always been a nice compact solution, and I love the fact that I can put it in my suitcase. Nobody knows there's a drone there. It doesn't stand out, it doesn't take up a ton of room, and I don't need to pay for extra luggage. The compact nature of the Mavic we all know about, we all love, and for me, that's a winner. Personally, I just can't imagine going back to a Phantom. Even if it had a folding and retractable undercarriage, it still wouldn't appeal. In fact, if anything, it's a big negative for me. When the Mavic first launched, some even argued that the Phantom was a more stable platform. Well, actually, there have been tests of the Mavic and the Phantom flying in heavy wind, and they both perform equally as well. The next one is interchangeable lenses. There is a big rumour, and that's all it is, that the Phantom 5, if it ever arrives. How often have you been flying your drone and wished that you could swap the lens on it? Personally, I haven't. We now have the option of the Mavic 2 Zoom, which lets you zoom in and out, essentially giving you that change of lens. And ultimately, professional photographers do change their lenses all the time, but rarely when they're taking landscape shots, which is generally the case with a drone. The point of a drone is that you can fly it kilometers away from wherever you're standing. So if you need a shot that's a little bit wider, you fly it a little bit further away. Now, yes, you can enhance your drone shots in terms of aperture and gaining some motion blur or background blur, but ultimately the Mavic 2 Pro gives you that aperture control. So I just really don't understand the hype about interchangeable lenses. And I think the reality is everybody and the YouTube channels hyping about interchangeable lenses, they would rarely be changing those lenses themselves. So let's think realistically and honestly about this. Comment below, how often have you wanted to change the lens on your drone? Next point is hand catching. Now, some people have argued that the undercarriage or the legs of the Phantom make it easier to hand catch, and there is a lot of validity in that. However, I can't think of the occasions that I've actually needed to hand catch my drone, so while it may be a minor advantage for some in some context, it's certainly not a wide advantage for the majority of people that own these drones. When I'm out and about flying, if the land or the terrain is uneven, I'm landing it on a landing mat. In fact, sometimes I'll even land it just on any surface that I have with me, be it a suitcase or a landing mat. But also, you can easily hand catch the Mavic 2, and the risks of hand catching a Mavic versus a Phantom are equal. They both have very rapidly spinning blades, and they can both do you a lot of harm. If you're a professional drone user, the reality is it doesn't matter which you've got. You can hand catch either. Some have argued that if you turn up on site with a Phantom, you're seen as a professional. Turn up with a Mavic, you're seen as an amateur. Well, actually, I think the opposite. If I see somebody flying a Phantom these days, I actually suspect that it might be their first drone, because it is the stereotypical drone that we used to see in the press and the media all the time. In fact, whenever there's a drone speculated to have been flying near an airport, guess what stock clip art photo they use? It's a Phantom. So in terms of first impressions, I massively disagree with the views of some vloggers and YouTubers that the Phantom is seen as a professional drone. I actually think absolutely the opposite. The other argument is about the advanced cameras of the Phantom drones. Now, yes, it has a 1-inch sensor, and as far as I'm aware, there's no line skipping on that sensor. But ultimately, the Mavic 2 Pro produces beautiful footage, as does the Mavic 2 Zoom. And I really don't think that the everyday consumer would genuinely spot the difference, especially if the footage has then been passed through color grading and post-editing correction, as any professional would do. I accept that if you take two elements of footage raw from the Mavic 2 and the Phantom 4 V2, then yes, the Phantom footage might look better initially, but ultimately that's where post-editing comes into the equation. 60 frames per second at 4K, it's that old one again. Now, this comes down to the specific use case again. The majority of us do not need to shoot 60 frames per second at 4K. Most of your computers can't even handle that in post-editing, and I think this is another point that's laboured constantly by some YouTubers.
We need 60 frames per second at 4K on the Mavic 2.
Come on, you really do not. There's the argument that you want to slow down that footage and produce some slow motion shots by halving it to 30 frames per second. Well, upscale 1080p and shoot at 120 frames per second if you want genuine slow motion, because halving 60 frames a second to gain slow motion is not really that effective. This to me is just another argument like the interchangeable lenses. It's nice to have, but come on, most of us don't need 60 FPS at 4K. If I'm wrong, then seriously have a think about it, but do comment below and let me know. Another point is mechanical shutters. Now, the Phantom 4 V2 has a mechanical shutter, the Mavic 2 doesn't. Now, this does produce slightly nicer video, but in reality, only the very sharp, keen-eyed of you would actually spot the difference. It's another nice to have. As a consumer, you really don't notice the difference. It's only when you start moving into the professional scenario that you actually would. Please don't buy into the hype around features that you're told that you need when actually you don't. And finally, another point I've seen raised by some is ATI mode. Yep, the Phantom, you can enable ATI mode when and where you want. You can't do that on the Mavic yet, but there's no reason why this can't be enabled. It's not a hardware change. You don't need the physical infrastructure of the Phantom to have ATI mode. It just needs a software change to enable that toggle on the Mavic. Now, if all of us ask together as a community and we push and labour that point hard enough, perhaps DJI will give us that feature. But one thing for sure, we don't all need to sell our Mavics and buy a Phantom to get ATI mode. If you're really, truly, desperately needing ATI mode, stick some silver foil over your GPS. Did I really just suggest that? So it's a really controversial discussion this. Some people just love the old Phantom shape and they can't detach their emotions from this argument. But ultimately, I love my Mavic 2. I wouldn't swap it for a Phantom if you gave me $1,000 to do it. And I mean that genuinely. So please, I beg you, let's all be realistic here. I know that some trolls will be determined to bash their keyboards away and comment below saying, "You are wrong." But just stop and think for 1 minute, then comment below. Thank you very much for watching. I don't mean to upset anybody with this video. This is just my opinion, but I want to hear your opinion, so let me have your thoughts. Give the video a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Click subscribe. More content coming soon. Thank you very much for watching.